Hey, welcome to the Eddie Hyatt podcast. I'm your host and teacher, Eddie Hyatt. So glad to be back with you today as we continue our journey through the book of Acts. If the audio sounds a little differently, I am away from my office and from the studio, and I'm using the built-in uh, microphone in my computer. So if the audio is not quite up to par, I apologize, but I trust you're going to be able to hear it well enough to be blessed. Excuse me, by the message we're going to share with you today from chapter 27. Now, excuse me. Yesterday we were at the place, or the last. I think this is Monday, so last Friday, Paul has been mobbed by a Jewish mob who went about to kill him in Jerusalem, fulfilling the prophecies that were given him on his way to Jerusalem. The Romans came and rescued him, and eventually Paul appealed his case to Rome. So he is a under incarcerated by the Romans in Caesarea. He defends himself before the Roman governor Festus, and then before King Agrippa. And you may remember that he said to, after giving his testimony to King Agrippa, Herod Agrippa, it was Herod who said, Paul, he was so impressed. He said, Paul, you almost persuade me to be a Christian. You almost persuade me. And Paul very passionately said, Oh King, he said, I would that not almost, but altogether you and everyone who hears me would become, I'm paraphrasing it, but would become followers of Jesus. And so because Paul had appealed to Rome, Agrippa said, this man could have been set free. He hasn't done anything wrong. He could have been set free if he had not appealed his case to Rome. So, because of somehow in the official legal proceedings, it was going to be necessary for Paul to go to Rome. But this is all working into God's providential plan. And what I mean, God's providential plan, God works through natural human situations. God works through the natural course of human history. He works providentially in his infinite wisdom and limitless power to bring about his plans and purposes. And in Rome, even though under house arrest, Paul, we'll see this a little later, Paul is going to have a powerful impact in the city of Rome, even impacting Caesar's household. Wow. But we want to look starting at verse 27. So he is taken as a prisoner from Caesarea. He's being taken to Rome, and he's on a ship, and there are other prisoners on the ship. So I'm going to read verse 27 and 1. It says, And when it was decided that we should sail to Italy. Now, this is Luke writing. Luke is a part of, he's with Paul. He's allowed to travel with Paul, his companion. Uh, they delivered Paul and some other prisoners to one named Julius, a centurion of the Augustus regiment. So, entering a ship of Adramyttian, we put out to sea, meaning to sail along the coast of Asia. Aristarchus, a Macedonian of Thessalonica, was with us. So there's at least two people with Paul in this journey. And uh, so there's somewhere out in the middle of this journey in the Mediterranean, they encounter an incredible storm. It sounds like what we would call a hurricane. And let's look at we'll go down to verse 18, verse 27. And what I want you to see, what I want to get across to you in this episode, that even when all human hope is gone, God has a way to bring you out and to bring you through. So listen to this. Verse 18 says, and because we were exceedingly uh tempest tossed, the next day they lightened the ship. On the third day they threw the ship's tackle overboard. We threw the ship's tackle over with our own hands. Now when neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, and no small tempest beat on us. All hope that we would be saved was finally given up. So they neither saw any moon, any sun, stars for many days, and they were being so blown by the wind and the waves. They threw everything they could overboard to lighten the ship, and so they came to the place. Luke says all hope was given up that we would be saved. Have you ever been there? Have you ever been through a situation that all hope was gone? You couldn't see any way you were going to get through it, around it, or over it. My friends, there is a God in heaven who will bring you through. Now, so let's keep reading here. It says, but after long abstinence from food, then Paul stood in the midst of them and said, Men, you should have listened to me and not have sailed from Crete and incurred this disaster and loss. Now he's referring to the fact that they had in the journey the ship had docked for a stop on the island of Crete. And Paul had said to them, he had urged them, he said, I perceive there's going to be a great damage and harm if you continue, if you leave now. But the soldier, the officer, the Roman officer, he trusted the sailor and the captains of the ship rather than Paul. And so Paul is reminding them, he said, Hey, I warned you. You didn't listen to me. But now, he says, and now I urge you to take heart, but I want to encourage you. For there will be no loss of life among you, but only the ship. For there stood by me this night an angel of God to whom I belong and whom I serve. My friend, God still has a host of angels that he still sends forth, and he can send forth an angel, one of his angels, to deliver you from whatever situation you may find yourself in. And Paul says, There stood by me this night an angel of the God to whom I belong and whom I serve, saying, Do not be afraid, Paul. You must be brought before Caesar. And indeed, God has granted you all those who sail with you. Now, heaven's perspective. I want to point out heaven's perspective on the situation, and you need to see heaven's perspective on your situation. Notice what the angel said. He let him know, yeah, you're going to lose the ship, but no life is going to be lost. He says, for God has granted you all those who sail with you. Now, it looked like Paul was sailing with them. He was a prisoner in chains. It looked like Paul was sailing with them, but from heaven's perspective, they were sailing with Paul. Everything was revolving around Paul. They were going to be saved because Paul was on that ship. I'll say that again. They were going to be saved because Paul was on that ship. From heaven's perspective, they were sailing with Paul. I'll never forget when we were pastoring a traditional type congregation in Canada many years ago. There was a woman, she called, Sue answered the phone, and she was so upset. She was a good Christian woman, a Christian leader in the community. She was an Anglican. And she was the director of a prayer counseling center that was a part of a nationwide Christian network. She didn't attend our church, but but she had learned to respect us. And I actually went in and helped answer the phones for them at times. And she called and she was so upset. She was telling Sue because, as she put it, her daughter was marrying into a Muslim family. And as she was talking, this whole principle that I'm sharing with you came into Sue's heart, seeing things from heaven's perspective. And so at one point, Sue stopped her and said, "Wait a minute." Um, and I'm trying to think of her name. Her last name was Jenner. But Sue stopped her and said, "Wait a minute. Your daughter is not marrying into a Muslim family. He is marrying into a Christian family. Wow, how liberating that was, how freeing that was, seeing it from heaven's perspective. The angel of God said to Paul, God's God's given you everyone, Paul, who sails with you. Wow. My friends, see your situation from heaven's perspective. Paul was not sailing with them, they were sailing with Paul. I pray that you will see God's intervention. But many times we have to see our situation from heaven's perspective. Lord, bless my brother and my sister today. May they see their situation from your perspective and send forth the deliverance they need in Jesus' name. Hey, I'm Eddie Hyatt. This is the Eddie Hyatt Podcast. I look forward to being with you again tomorrow. God bless you.